Hey there, welcome back. Tonight, we're going somewhere most people never think about. Somewhere that exists in that liminal space between sleep and waking. We're stepping into the darkness of a medieval monastery, into those hours when the rest of the world is deeply asleep. But within these ancient stone walls, life is stirring. This is a story about the night hours. The times when medieval monks would rise from their beds, leave their small cells, and gather in the cold darkness to pray. Not once, not twice, but multiple times throughout the night. Before we begin, if you enjoy these journeys into history's quieter corners, go ahead and subscribe. And maybe leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to know that while I'm talking about people waking in medieval darkness, some of you might be drifting off to sleep yourselves, somewhere across the world. Now get comfortable. Adjust your pillow. Pull that blanket a little higher. Maybe close your eyes if you'd like. Because tonight, we're not rushing anywhere. We're going to move slowly through the hours of darkness, experiencing what it meant to be a monk, who chose to break their sleep, rise in the cold, and meet the night with prayer. There are no battles here, no plagues, no dramatic deaths, just the quiet persistence of ritual, the soft sounds of a life lived according to the rhythms of prayer rather than the sun. A life where darkness was not something to fear or avoid, but something to enter into again and again with purpose. So let's begin. Let's go back nearly 1,000 years to a monastery somewhere in medieval Europe. Perhaps it's in the hills of Tuscany, maybe the forests of France, or the windswept coasts of England. The exact location doesn't matter so much, because in monasteries across the medieval world, the same thing was happening, night after night, year after year, century after century. The same bells, the same darkness, the same devotion. To understand why monks rose in the night, we need to understand something called the divine office, or, as it was sometimes known, the liturgy of the hours. This wasn't just a medieval invention, though that's when it became most structured. The practice of praying at set times throughout the day and night stretches back to early Christianity and even further back to Jewish temple practices. But it was medieval monks, particularly those following the rule of St. Benedict, who refined this practice into something almost architectural in its precision. The rule of Benedict, written in the 6th century, became the foundation for monastic life across Western Europe. And Benedict had very specific ideas about prayer. He believed that the entire day and the entire night should be punctuated by moments of turning toward the divine. Not just once or twice, but 8 times in every 24-hour period. 8 offices, they were called. 8 set times for communal prayer. Let me name them for you, slowly so you can hear the rhythm of them. Matins, in the deepest part of the night. Lauds, at dawn. Prime, at the first hour of daylight. Terce, at mid-morning. Sext, at midday. None, in the afternoon. Vespers, at evening. Compline, before bed. Can you hear the structure there? The way the day is divided not by meals or work tasks, but by prayer. Each office had its own character, its own psalms, its own particular quality of light or darkness. But tonight, we're focusing on the ones that happened when most of the world was asleep. Matins and lauds, the night hours, when monks would leave their beds and enter into the darkness. Now, you might be thinking, why? Why would anyone choose to interrupt their sleep? Medieval people worked hard. They were often cold, often tired. Sleep was precious. Why give it up? The answer lies in something monks took very seriously: vigilance. The idea that one should always be watching, always awake, to the spiritual dimension of existence. There's a passage in the Gospel of Mark where Jesus tells his disciples, "Watch therefore, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening, or at midnight, or at the crowing of the rooster, or in the morning." Medieval monks took this literally. They would watch. They would be awake when others slept. They would keep vigil. But there's something else too. Something more practical, more human. The night has a different quality than the day. In darkness, distractions fall away. There are no visual interruptions, no bustling activity, no sunlight streaming through windows, making you aware of all the tasks waiting to be done. In the night, there is only the present moment, the breath, the voice, the prayer. And medieval monks discovered something that modern sleep researchers would later confirm. There's a particular state of consciousness that exists in the middle of the night, after a period of sleep, when the mind is both relaxed and alert. It's neither fully asleep nor fully awake. It's liminal, in between. And in that in-between space, something opens up. A capacity for contemplation, for awareness, for a kind of peace that's different from the peace of simply being well rested. The structure of these night vigils varied somewhat from monastery to monastery and changed over the centuries. But the basic pattern remained consistent. Monks would go to bed at what we might call early evening, usually around 8 or 9 p.m., shortly after compline, the last prayer of the day. They would sleep for a few hours, 3, maybe 4, just long enough to take the edge off the day's fatigue. And then usually around midnight or 1 a.m. a bell would ring. That bell is where our story really begins. Imagine you're a monk in a medieval monastery. Let's say it's sometime in the 13th century. You're in your late 20s, perhaps. You've been in this monastery for 7 years now. Long enough that the routines have become part of your body's rhythm, but not so long that you've forgotten what it's like to sleep through the night. You're lying on a straw mattress in your cell. It's not a private room as we'd think of it. In many monasteries, especially the stricter ones, monks slept in a large communal dormitory with perhaps a dozen or 20 or even more monks, all in one long room. Your cell is simply a space marked out along the wall with perhaps a low wooden partition for privacy. In other monasteries, particularly later in the medieval period, monks might have had small individual rooms. But even these were sparse. A bed. A small table, maybe. A shelf for books, if you were privileged. A crucifix, certainly. And that's about all. The mattress beneath you is stuffed with straw, and you can feel it shifting and rustling slightly whenever you move. You're wearing your habit still, or perhaps a simpler woolen nightshirt. Medieval monks didn't have pajamas. They simply undressed partially, removing the heavier outer garments, but keeping something on for warmth and modesty. Above you, you can't see the ceiling because it's absolutely, profoundly dark. On some nights, if there's a full moon and the clouds have cleared, a thin, pale light might filter through the small windows high in the dormitory walls. But on most nights, like tonight, there's nothing. The darkness is complete. You've been asleep for perhaps 3.5 hours. Your sleep hasn't been the deep, unbroken sleep of exhaustion. You've drifted, dreamed a little, maybe woken once to shift position, felt the cold and pulled your blanket tighter. And then, the bell. It's not jarring, exactly. You've been expecting it after all. Your body has been expecting it. This happens every night. But still, there's that moment of resistance, that sleepy confusion, as your mind surfaces from wherever it's been. The bell keeps ringing, slow, steady tolls, not hurried. The bell ringer, maybe it's Brother Thomas, or maybe it's Brother Aldrich, whoever has that duty this week. He's pulling the rope in the bell tower, and the sound is rolling out across the monastery and the countryside beyond. Farmers sleeping in their cottages might hear it faintly, barely registering it in their own sleep, perhaps incorporating it into their dreams. But for you, it means one thing: time to rise. Around you in the dormitory, you can hear it beginning. The soft creak of mattresses as bodies sit up. A few quiet coughs. Someone clearing their throat gently. The whisper of blankets being folded back. Feet finding the cold stone floor. No one speaks. The rule is clear about this. Silence is to be maintained, especially during the night hours. There's no good morning, no sleepy complaints, no conversation at all. Just the sound of monks beginning to move, each one enacting this familiar ritual. You sit up. The cold hits you immediately. It's always cold in the night, even in summer. But tonight, it's particularly sharp. Let's say it's January, deep winter. The dormitory is unheated. Your breath makes small clouds in the darkness. Though you can't see them. You stand and for a moment, you're a little dizzy. That's normal. You've been lying down, deeply asleep, and now you're vertical. You steady yourself, one hand on the wall. Your sandals are where you left them, right by the bed. You slide your feet into them. The leather is cold, stiff. During the day, your body heat warms them, makes them supple. But now they're like wearing stones. Some monasteries required monks to sleep in their full habits, so that when the bell rang, they needed only to stand and walk to the church. But many allowed partial undressing. So now, in the darkness, you are pulling on your tunic, your scapula, making sure everything is in place. Your fingers are clumsy with sleep and cold. Around you, you can hear the same sounds multiplied. Fabric rustling, sandals scraping on stone. Bodies moving, but still no voices. Just the gentle repeated sounds of men preparing themselves for prayer. Someone has lit a candle. You can see its small flame now, warm and yellow, moving as a monk carries it carefully past. He's heading toward the church. Others will follow. The light casts huge, soft shadows on the dormitory walls. More candles are being lit. In some monasteries, there might be a few lanterns hanging in the dormitory, and the monk responsible for this duty would light them as soon as the bell rang. But in stricter houses, each monk might carry their own small candle, carefully shielded from draughts. The light is comforting, but it's also deeply strange. It doesn't illuminate the way daylight does. It creates the pockets of visibility surrounded by deeper darkness. And because everyone is moving, the shadows are moving too, dancing and shifting on every surface. You pick up your own candle. You prepared it before bed, leaving it on the small shelf with your prayer book. You light it from your neighbor's flame. The wick catches, hesitates, then glows steady. The smell of beeswax fills the air. If you're in a wealthy monastery, these are good candles, made carefully by the monks themselves from their own hives. If you're in a poorer house, they might be tallow, made from animal fat, and they smell less pleasant, a little rancid, a little smoky. But they give light, and that's what matters. Now you're ready. You join the slow procession of monks, making their way out of the dormitory, down the night stairs, toward the church. The passage from the dormitory to the church is made via what's called the night stairs. In many medieval monasteries, the dormitory was built directly adjacent to the church on an upper floor, and a special staircase connected the two. This was purely for practical purposes, so that monks could go directly from bed to prayer without having to go outside or walk through other parts of the monastery. These stairs are worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Literally centuries. Your monastery was founded in the year 1050, let's say, and now it's 1250. 200 years of monks walking these same stairs twice every night, every single night. That's more than 140,000 journeys up and down these particular stones. And you can feel it in the stone itself. Where your foot lands, the center of each step is slightly concaved, shaped by all those feet before you. The edges of the steps are still sharp and square, but the middle has been worn into a gentle curve. It makes the walking easier, actually. Your foot knows where to land. The stairs curve as they descend. You keep one hand on the wall for balance, especially in the darkness, even though you've walked these stairs thousands of times yourself. The stone wall is cold, almost wet feeling from the night air. You can smell the characteristic smell of old stone, damp and slightly mineral, like the inside of a cave. Your candle flame flutters as you descend, threatened by small draughts. But it doesn't go out. Behind you, another monk follows, their light adding to yours. And ahead of you, more lights, a slow constellation of flames descending the stairs. No one speaks. The only sounds are footsteps, the soft rustling of robes and breathing. Someone sniffs. Someone else coughs, very quietly, trying to suppress it. In the silence and the cold, every sound seems amplified. You reach the bottom of the stairs, and now you're in a short corridor that leads directly into the church. The air changes here. It smells different. Less like sleep and stone, more like incense and old wood. You're entering sacred space. The doorway to the church is arched, tall, made to accommodate the flow of monks. You pass through it, and even though you've done this countless times, there's still a small shift in your awareness. You're entering the church. This is where you will spend the next hour, maybe longer, in prayer. In the church at night is a different place than the church during the day. During the day, when sunlight streams through the windows, those tall, narrow windows with their colored glass, or in simpler monasteries, just plain glass or even oiled parchment, the church feels open, bright, connected to the world outside. You can see the dust motes floating in the light beams. You can see every detail of the carved capitals on the columns, every chip in the stone floor, every painting on the walls. But at night, the church belongs to darkness and candlelight. As you enter, your eyes adjust slowly. The church is large, cavernous even, but you can't see its full extent. The ceiling disappears into blackness above you. The far end of the church, where the altar stands, is visible only because monks have already placed candles there. Preparing for matins, their small flames flicker in the distance, like stars. The church is built in a cruciform shape, as most medieval monastery churches were. You are entering at the crossing, where the transepts meet the nave. To your left and right extend the short arms of the cross. Ahead of you, the choir, where monks will sit to sing the offers. And beyond that, the altar, the most sacred space. The temperature here is, if anything, colder than in the dormitory. Stone holds cold, and this is a lot of stone. Floors, walls, columns, vaulted ceiling, all of it ancient, all of it radiating that deep chill that comes from thermal mass that never fully warms. Your breath makes clouds that drift up and disappear. You walk carefully, your sandals making soft scuffing sounds on the worn stone floor. The floor here is also hollowed by footsteps, particularly along the main paths that monks walk every day. Centuries of walking have created subtle pathways in the stone itself. The acoustics in here are remarkable. Every sound echoes, but not in a harsh way. The echoes are soft, rounded, absorbed by the tapestries that hang on some walls, by the wooden choir stalls, by the very age of the stone. When someone coughs, it blooms into the space and fades slowly. When sandals scrape on stone, the sound multiplies and softens simultaneously. You make your way to your place in the choir stalls. These are wooden seats arranged in rows on either side of the church, facing each other across the central aisle. Each monk has an assigned place, determined by seniority and role within the monastery. You've been here long enough that your place is reasonably close to the front, though not at the very front, where the abbot and the most senior brothers sit. The choir stalls are ingeniously designed. Each seat has a small shelf that folds down, called a misericord. When you're standing during long prayers, you can flip this shelf down and lean against it, taking some weight off your legs without actually sitting. A small mercy, hence the name, misericord, mercy seat. The wood of the seat is dark, polished smooth by generations of monks. In the candlelight, it gleams faintly. You run your hand along it as you take your place. The wood is cold too, of course. Everything is cold, but there's something comforting about this space. Despite the cold and the darkness, something safe. The walls of the church are thick, sometimes 6 feet thick or more at the base. Nothing can penetrate them. Not wind, not noise, not the chaos of the outside world. In here, you're held, protected, separate. The other monks are finding their places now. You can see them moving in the candlelight, shadows among shadows, each one silent, each one enacting the same familiar pattern. Some walk briskly, fully awake now. Others move more slowly, still wrapped in that transitional state between sleep and waking. No one has spoken yet. The great silence, it's called. This practice of maintaining silence from after compline until after the morning office. It's not broken except for necessity, and certainly not for casual conversation. The silence isn't empty though. It's full of presence, of attention, of a kind of collective awareness. You kneel briefly on the stone floor, as is customary upon entering one's place in the choir. The stone is hard against your knees, even through the fabric of your habit. You make a sign of the cross, murmur a private prayer, and then sit back onto the choir stall seat. And now, you wait. More monks are still arriving. The processional is continuous but slow. Each monk takes their time, moves with intention. There's no rushing in the liturgy. Never rushing. The candles are multiplying now. As each monk reaches his place, more light blooms in the darkness. The choir area is becoming brighter, more defined. You can start to see faces across the aisle, though they're still shadowed, mysterious in the uneven light. Someone is placing a larger candle stand near the lectern, where the psalm will be read. This candle is taller, thicker, meant to last through the entire office. It gives more light, casting a pool of illumination around the reading stand. You can see your breath. You can feel your body starting to wake more fully now, responding to the cold, to the standing, to the anticipation of prayer. Your heart has settled into a calm, steady rhythm. Your mind is still soft, still partly in that state of night consciousness, but you're alert, present. And then, when all the monks have arrived, when everyone is in their place, when the church is as ready as it will ever be, the abbot gives a signal. And Matins begins. The office always begins with the opening verse. One monk, often the abbot himself or a designated cantor, intones the first line. "O Lord, open my lips." And the community responds, "And my mouth shall proclaim your praise." The voices blend in the darkness, in the cold. There's something otherworldly about it. These are not professional singers. They're monks. Some have beautiful voices, some do not. But when they chant together, the individual voices disappear into a collective sound that seems to come from the stones themselves. This is Gregorian chant, though it wouldn't be called that yet in our 13th century monastery. That name comes later. To the monks is simply the chant, the way liturgy has always been sung, reaching back through centuries. The style is monophonic, one melodic line, no harmony, and it moves in gentle waves. There are no sharp rhythms, no percussion, no drama, just a melodic line, flowing like water, rising and falling, always moving forward. The text being chanted comes largely from the Psalms, those ancient Hebrew prayers that Christians adopted as their own. But the way they're sung transforms them. The Latin words, and yes, everything is in Latin, the universal language of the medieval church, are stretched and shaped by the melody. Deus, in adjutorium meum intenda. O God, come to my assistance. Domine, ad adjuvanam me festina. O Lord, make haste to help me. You know these words by heart. Every monk does. You've sung them thousands of times. Your mouth forms the Latin syllables automatically, your voice finding its place in the collective sound. The chant continues. A psalm is sung, antiphonally, with the monks on one side of the choir singing a verse, and the monks on the other side responding with the next verse. Back and forth, in a pattern that creates a kind of sonic breathing. Beatus vir qui non habit in concilio impiorum. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked. The first psalm is complete. A moment of silence. Then the next psalm begins. Matins is the longest of all the night offices. It can last an hour, sometimes more. It includes not just psalms, but also readings from scripture, readings from the church fathers, hymns, prayers. It's structured carefully, divided into sections called nocturnes, usually 3 of them, each with its own set of psalms and readings. As the office progresses, you slip into that particular state of consciousness that comes from repetitive prayer at night. Your body is still seated, but your mind is active, attending to the words, to the melody, to the meaning. And yet, you're also not fully awake. That edge of sleepiness remains. Sometimes your eyes drift closed, not in sleep exactly, but in a kind of waking darkness that matches the darkness around you. And the chant continues, supporting you, carrying you along even when your attention wavers. This is not a bad thing. The monastic tradition understands this. You're not expected to be perfectly alert, perfectly focused every single moment. You're human. You were asleep an hour ago. The practice itself, the showing up, the sitting, the attempting to be present, is what matters. sometimes your attention sharpens. A particular phrase in a psalm catches you. In peace, I will both lie down and sleep. And you feel the irony, the sweetness of singing about sleep while denying yourself sleep, but also the truth of it. There is peace in this, a different kind of rest. A reading now from the book of Isaiah. One monk stands at the lectern, illuminated by the tall candle, and reads aloud. His voice is measured, clear, projecting into the darkness. The Latin rolls out, formal and ancient. You listen, following along, letting the words wash over you. Some parts you understand fully. Some parts remain mysterious, beautiful in their obscurity. That's fine too. Not everything needs to be understood. Some things just need to be experienced, received, held. The reading ends. A response is sung. Another psalm begins. Time feels different here. It's not moving at the usual pace. Minutes feel longer, but the whole experience also feels timeless, as if you've been here forever and will be here forever. There's no clock, no way to mark the passing of moments except by the structure of the office itself. And the structure is circular, cyclical, always returning to familiar phrases, familiar patterns. Outside, the world is completely dark and still. In villages nearby, everyone is asleep. Farmers, merchants, children, lords in their castles, peasants in their cottages, all sleeping. But here, you're awake. You're keeping vigil. You're holding the thread of prayer through the darkest hours, maintaining a connection to the sacred when the material world has turned away into sleep and dreams. There's something powerful in that. Something that makes the cold less important, the tiredness less important. You're part of something larger than yourself, part of a tradition that stretches back centuries and will stretch forward centuries more. The third nocturne is ending now. The final psalms are sung. A hymn follows, melodically richer than the psalms, with a more defined structure. This particular hymn is one you've always loved. The melody lifts at the end of each phrase, ascending, hopeful. And then, the office is drawing to a close. The prayers are said. The final blessing is given by the abbot, his voice gentle in the darkness. Matins is complete, but you don't leave yet, because Lauds follows immediately. Technically, Lauds is meant to be sung at dawn, as its name suggests. Lauds, from the Latin laus, meaning praise. The praise office welcoming the new day, greeting the returning light. But in practice, especially in winter, when dawn doesn't come until quite late, Lauds immediately follows matins. So you move from the long night office directly into this shorter, brighter office, even though the world outside is still completely dark. The character of Lauds is different. Matins is contemplative, inward, suited to the deep night, but Lauds is more exuberant, more outward-facing. It anticipates the light, even if that light hasn't yet appeared. The opening psalm of Lauds is almost always one of the final 5 psalms in the Psalter. What are called the laudate psalms, because they all begin with that word, laudate, praise. Laudate Dominum omnes gentes. Praise the Lord, all nations. The melody is more energetic now, though still measured, still calm. The voices have warmed up. An hour of chanting has loosened throats, synced breathing. The sound is fuller, more confident. You shift slightly in your seat. Your body is fully awake now. The cold is still there, but you've adjusted to it, stopped fighting it. It's just a condition of being, not something to resist. More psalms, a canticle from the Old Testament, and then the Gospel canticle, the Benedictus, the Song of Zechariah. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel. Everyone stands for the gospel canticle. It's a mark of respect and also a welcome chance to stretch legs that have been sitting for so long. You rise, and around you dozens of other monks rise too. The sound of fabric rustling, wood creaking. The chant of the Benedictus is beautiful, one of the most melodically interesting pieces in the daily office. The melody moves through the Latin text with a kind of gentle insistence, emphasizing certain words, passing more quickly over others. To give light to those who sit in darkness and in the shadow of death. That phrase always strikes you, because that's where you are, literally. In darkness. In the symbolic shadow of death. Mortality, limitation, human vulnerability. And yet, here you are, singing about light, anticipating it, trusting that it will come. And then, just as the Benedictus reaches its conclusion, just as the final Amen is sung, something changes. The windows, the high, narrow windows in the eastern wall of the church, they're no longer completely black. It's subtle at first, just the faintest suggestion of difference. The blackness becoming slightly less absolute. A shade of very deep blue, perhaps. Or maybe it's just your imagination. Your eyes wanting to see the dawn that you know is approaching. But no, it's real. As the prayers of Lauds continue, as the final psalms are sung, the windows continue to lighten, not quickly. This is December after all, and dawn comes slowly in winter. But it comes. The blue deepens slightly, becomes distinguishable from black. The shape of the window frames becomes barely visible. The contrast between the candle-lit interior of the church and the slowly lightening windows creates a strange effect. The interior seems darker by comparison, the candles more necessary, their light more precious. And yet, there's an awareness now of the world beyond the walls. The outside is waking. Light is returning. By the time Lauds concludes, by the time the abbot has given the final blessing, the windows are definitely lighter. Still too dark to see anything clearly, but no longer night. The in-between time, dawn, and there it is. The first bird. You can't see it, but you can hear it. A blackbird maybe, or a robin. Its song is tentative at first, a few notes testing the air. Then, more confident. Then, joined by another bird and another. The dawn chorus is beginning. Lauds is finished. The offices of the night are complete. But the day is not beginning quite yet. There's still an hour or two before prime, the first official office of the daylight hours. And so, monks have a choice. Some will return to the dormitory, to catch another hour or two of sleep before the day truly begins. Others will remain in the church, using this quiet time for private prayer or meditation. Still others might go to the warming room, one of the few heated spaces in the monastery, to thaw their cold hands and feet by a fire before the day's work. You decide to return to the dormitory. The tiredness is catching up with you now, that particular weariness that comes from broken sleep. You've been awake for more than an hour, standing and sitting in the cold, chanting, praying. And now, your body is reminding you that it's still technically night, still a time for rest. You make your way back through the church, past the slowly extinguishing candles. Monks on duty will carefully blow them out, conserve the wax for tomorrow night. Everything is reused, nothing wasted, in the economy of monastic life. Back through the corridor, up the night stairs, your feet finding those familiar worn places. The stairs are slightly easier to see now. with the faint pre-dawn light beginning to filter through the monastery. Into the dormitory. It's exactly as you left it, except now there's more light. You can see the rows of beds, the simple furnishings, the wooden beams of the ceiling. You remove your sandals. You lie down on your straw mattress, pull your blanket up. The straw rustles beneath you. Around you, other monks are doing the same, settling back into their narrow beds. And here's what's remarkable. After an hour of being fully awake, of praying, of singing, of standing in the cold, you fall asleep immediately. The moment you close your eyes, sleep takes you, deep and dreamless. Your body knows this rhythm. It's done this thousands of times. It can wake, be active, and return to sleep without resistance. This is not normal sleep anymore. This is something your body has learned to do. Parceled sleep, segmented sleep. A pattern that was actually quite common in medieval times, even outside monasteries, though we've largely forgotten it today. You'll sleep now until prime, until the next bell rings, calling you to the next office. Maybe that's an hour away, maybe 2. It doesn't matter. Your body will take what rest it can get, and it will be enough, because tonight you'll do it all again. The bell will ring. You'll rise in darkness. You'll walk the night stairs. You'll sing matins and lauds. And the night after that. And the night after that. Every night, year after year, decade after decade. Monks have been doing this at this monastery for 2 centuries already. Monks will continue doing this for centuries more. The seasons will change. Winter will give way to spring, spring to summer, summer to autumn, autumn back to winter. The length of the nights will vary. Sometimes dawn will come while you're still singing matins. Sometimes it will be full daylight by the time Lauds is done. Sometimes you'll walk the night stairs in December darkness, and sometimes in June's early light. But the pattern remains. The bells ring. The monks rise. The night is met with prayer. So why are we talking about this? Why spend time thinking about medieval monks waking in the night? Partly is simply fascinating. This is how people lived. For centuries, this was a completely normal part of existence for thousands of men across Europe. It's a window into a way of life, so different from our own that it's almost alien. We live in a world of unbroken sleep. Or at least the ideal of unbroken sleep. We go to bed, hopefully sleep through the night, and wake up in the morning. We have alarm clocks, set to precise times. We have artificial light that allows us to stay up as late as we want, and blackout curtains that allow us to sleep as long as we want. Our sleep is not dictated by the sun, by bells, by communal rhythms. And mostly, that's fine. Modern sleep is fine. But there's something we've lost. Something that medieval monks understood. The night has its own particular quality, its own gift. In the middle of the night, after a few hours of sleep, the mind is different. Softer, more open, less defended. The sharp edges of ego, of identity, of all the roles we play during the day, they're not as prominent. In that liminal state between sleep and waking, we're more ourselves and less ourselves simultaneously. The monks knew this. They cultivated it. They used it as a doorway into prayer, into contemplation, into an encounter with something beyond the everyday self. There's a term from Christian mysticism, the dark night of the soul. It usually refers to a period of spiritual desolation, of feeling abandoned by God. But it can also mean something simpler. The night itself is where certain kinds of spiritual experience become possible. The darkness is not an obstacle. It's a condition, a context, a kind of sacred space. In darkness we can't see. We have to rely on other senses, other ways of knowing. We have to trust. We have to let go of visual control and simply be. The monks, rising in the darkness of matins, entering the cold church with only candlelight, singing psalms while the world slept. They were enacting a kind of faith that was both literal and metaphoric. Waking when others slept, being vigilant, keeping watch. But there's something else too, something more immediate, more physical. The practice of rising in the night, praying, and then returning to sleep creates a particular rhythm in the body. It breaks sleep into segments, yes. But it also creates these pockets of awareness within sleep, these islands of wakefulness. And research has shown, modern research, sleep science research, that this kind of segmented sleep might actually be closer to our natural human pattern than the single long sleep we consider normal today. Before artificial lighting, most humans probably slept in this way. First sleep for a few hours after dark. Then a period of wakefulness in the middle of the night called the watching or watch hour. During this time, people might pray or have sex or tend the fire or simply lie quietly, thinking, dreaming with their eyes open. And then, second sleep, lasting until dawn. The Industrial Revolution, with its factory schedules and gas lighting, trained us out of this pattern. We learned to sleep through, straight through, from night until morning. It's efficient, certainly, but it's also a relatively recent invention. The monks were living closer to an ancient human rhythm. And maybe that's part of why the night offices were sustainable for them. Why men could maintain this practice for decades without it breaking them. Because they weren't fighting against their nature. They were working with it. Let's return to that monastery one more time. Let's experience the night hours in more detail, because there are textures here worth attending to. It's winter again. Let's say it's the middle of January, the coldest part of the year. Outside, the ground is frozen. There might be snow, or there might just be that iron-hard frost that makes the earth ring when you walk on it. The monastery is situated in a valley, surrounded by low hills. On those hills are forests of bare trees, their branches dark against the sky. The land around the monastery is agricultural, fields that in summer will grow barley and rye, but now lie fallow, resting. It's night, full night. The time is around 1 in the morning, maybe a little later. The moon is up, nearly full, and because it's winter and the trees have no leaves, the moonlight reaches the ground, creates long shadows, makes the snow. Yes, there is snow, a few inches of it, glow faintly blue. Inside the monastery, behind those thick walls, the monks are sleeping in the dormitory. We're going to follow one particular monk through this night. We'll call him Brother William. He's 32 years old. He's been in this monastery for 8 years. Before that, he was a clerk in a merchant's household, and he could read and write, which is part of why he was accepted into monastic life. Brother William is sleeping, but not deeply. He never sleeps deeply anymore, not during this first sleep. His body knows the bell is coming. Part of his awareness is always hovering near the surface, waiting. And then the bell. It starts as always with that first toll, resonating through the night, through the walls, through his sleep. Brother William's eyes open. For a moment, he doesn't know where he is, that strange universal confusion of waking. Then, orientation returns. The dormitory, the The bell. Time for matins. He sits up. The cold is immediate and shocking. His breath plumes. He can see it faintly in the moonlight that's filtering through the high windows. Around him, he can hear the other monks stirring, but he can barely see them. The moonlight doesn't reach far into the dormitory. Most of the space is darkness. He finds his sandals, his outer robe. His fingers are clumsy, cold. He fumbles a bit with the fastenings. Someone nearby, Brother Thomas probably, lights a candle, and the small flame blooms in the darkness. Brother William is grateful for the light, uses it to check that his clothing is properly arranged. He picks up his own candle, lights it from Brother Thomas's flame, and joins the slow procession toward the night stairs. The stairs. He's walked them thousands of times. His feet know the shape of each step, the slight curve worn into the stone. His hand trails along the wall, not really for balance. He doesn't need it, but for the connection, the tactile reality of the stone. He emerges into the church. It's even colder here, but also strangely beautiful. The moonlight is stronger here, coming through the tall windows of the nave. It's not enough light to see clearly, but it's enough to sense the space, the height of the ceiling, the presence of the altar in the distance. Candles are being lit. Brother William takes his place in the choir stall. He sits, then immediately regrets it. The wood is ice cold against his body, but he stays seated, begins his private prayer, preparing himself for the office. Tonight, he's more alert than usual. The moonlight helps. There's something about the quality of light, even the thin, cold moonlight, that makes wakefulness easier. On completely dark nights, he sometimes struggles more, finds his attention wandering, his eyes closing involuntarily. The abbot arrives. The community is assembled. Matins begins. "O Lord, open my lips." Brother William's voice joins the others. He knows these words so deeply that his mouth forms them without his conscious intention. His mind can wander, can think other thoughts, and still his voice will continue the psalm, will find the melody, will blend with the community. But tonight, he's paying attention. He's following the text, really hearing it. The psalm is number 94. The night, one of the invitatory psalms. Come, let us sing to the Lord. There's a phrase that catches him. In his hand are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. He thinks about that. The depths and the heights, both held. The hidden and the obvious. The dark and the light. The valley where this monastery sits, and the hills surrounding it. All held, all part of the same creation. The psalm continues. His attention drifts a bit, then returns. Another phrase catches him. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Today. Even though it's night, even though it's technically still yesterday or tomorrow, depending on how you count. But the psalm says today, the present moment, this moment, right now, in the cold church, with the moonlight and the candlelight, with his breath making clouds. Don't harden your heart, stay open, stay soft. It's harder in winter, he thinks. When everything is frozen, when cold makes you contract, pull inward, protect yourself. But the invitation remains. Stay open, even now, especially now. The first nocturne ends. There's a brief pause while the reader prepares for the scripture reading. Brother William shifts in his seat. His feet are very cold. He can't feel his toes anymore. That's fine. They'll warm up eventually, once he starts moving. Or maybe they won't. And that's fine too. The cold is just the cold. It's not an emergency. It's just a condition of winter. The reading begins. It's from the book of Jeremiah tonight, one of the prophetic books. The reader's voice is clear and steady, projecting into the space. Brother William listens, lets the ancient words wash over him. More psalms. Another reading, a hymn. And slowly, without him noticing exactly when it happens, the quality of the darkness changes. The moonlight fades as the moon drops toward the western horizon. But the windows facing east begin, very gradually, to lighten. By the time they reach Lourdes, by the time they're singing, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel," there's definitely a change. The windows are no longer black. They're dark blue, that particular deep blue that comes just before dawn. Brother William watches it happen. This daily miracle. The return of light. It never fails. Every single day of his life, every single day of human history, every single day stretching back to creation itself, the light returns. That's worth waking up for, he thinks. That's worth the cold, the tiredness, the interrupted sleep. To witness this. To sing praise as the light returns. The office ends. The monks disperse. Brother William stays in the church for a few minutes, just sitting, breathing, watching the windows continue to lighten. Outside, the birds have started. He can hear them through the thick walls, their morning songs. In summer, the dawn chorus is overwhelming, hundreds of birds all singing at once. But in winter, it's more modest. A few hardy species, robins, thrushes, crows. Their songs sound different in the cold air, sharper, more crystalline. Eventually, Brother William stands. His knees crack slightly. He's not that old, but the cold makes joints stiffer. He makes his way back to the dormitory, back to his narrow bed. He lies down, pulls the blanket up, and within minutes, he's asleep again. The night hours we've been describing are from winter, the deepest, darkest part of the year. But of course, the experience of Matins and Lauds changed throughout the year as the nights lengthened and shortened. In summer, the night is brief. By the time the monks wake for Matins, still around midnight or 1 a.m. by the monastery's schedule, dawn is only a few hours away. Sometimes, especially around the summer solstice, they might finish the entire office just as true dawn is breaking. The summer church is a completely different place. It's not warm, exactly. Stone never really warms. But it's less brutally cold. The monks might leave the dormitory windows open, so there's a gentle breeze moving through the space, carrying the scent of night-blooming flowers from the gardens, the smell of hay from the fields, and the birds. Oh, the birds in summer. Even before dawn, they're singing. The monks chant their psalms accompanied by this natural chorus, this affirmation of life that needs no theology, no structure. Just the imperative to sing because the day is coming. In summer, monks might not even return to sleep after Lauds. The day is simply too short, too full of work that needs doing. They might go directly from the church to the refectory for a simple breakfast and then out into the fields or workshops to begin the day's labour. In autumn, there's a particular quality to the night offices that Brother William loves. The harvest is complete or nearly complete. The monastery stores are full. There's a sense of abundance, of completion, of the cycle fulfilled, and the nights are getting longer, perceptibly so, day by day. You can feel the world turning toward darkness, toward rest, toward the big sleep of winter. The autumn church smells different. It smells like apples from the monastery orchard, like the smoke from fires that have started to be lit more regularly, like the dampness that comes with autumn rain. And in spring is a kind of miracle. The nights are shortening, the temperatures are rising. After the long darkness and cold of winter, the return of warmth feels like resurrection, like the world being born again. In spring, when the monks rise for matins, they might hear not just birds, but the sounds of lambs in the nearby fields, newborn and vocal. They might smell the wet earth, the new growth, the flowers beginning to bloom in the monastery gardens. Each season brings its own character to the night hours. But the structure remains the same. The bells ring, the monks rise, the psalms are sung, the vigil is kept. We've been talking about the night hours as if they're always the same experience. But of course they're not. Each monk brings his own state of being to the office, and that changes night by night. Some nights Brother William comes to matins feeling relatively rested. He had good sleep during his first sleep, deep and dreamless. He wakes when the bell rings, feeling clear, alert, ready. On these nights the office is easeful. The chant flows naturally. His attention stays focused. He feels connected to the community, to the prayers, to the rhythm of the liturgy. Other nights are harder. Maybe he didn't sleep well during the first sleep. Maybe he's coming down with a cold, and his head is stuffed, his throat sore. Maybe he's anxious about something, a difficult conversation with the abbot, or worry about his elderly mother in the village, or just a low-level unease that sometimes visits human beings for no clear reason. On these nights, the office is an endurance test. The cold seems colder. The sitting seems longer. The psalms don't penetrate. They just wash past him, sound without meaning. He fights to stay awake, fights to keep his attention from wandering into resentment or boredom. But he stays. That's the thing. Even on the hard nights, he stays. He shows up. He sings when it's his turn to sing. He stands when it's time to stand. He participates in the communal act even when his personal experience is one of difficulty. This is something the monastic tradition understands deeply. You don't have to feel spiritual to be engaged in spiritual practice. You don't have to feel holy to participate in holy liturgy. You just have to show up. The showing up itself is the practice. Some monks over the centuries have reported mystical experiences during the night hours. Visions, ecstasies, moments of profound union with the divine. These stories are recorded in the writings of the medieval mystics, men and women who experienced God with an intensity that transformed them. But most monks, most of the time, don't have those experiences. Most of the time, it's just this: waking up, being cold, chanting psalms, waiting for dawn, going back to bed. And that's fine. That's more than fine. That's the actual substance of a spiritual life. Not peak experiences, but daily fidelity. Not transcendence, but simple presence. There are nights when Brother William feels absolutely nothing. He goes through the motions, and that's all they are. Motions. The words of the Psalms are just sounds. The church is just a building. The community is just a group of tired men, no different from any other group of men anywhere. And then, unexpectedly, a moment breaks through. A phrase in a reading. I have calmed and quieted my soul. And something in him settles. Some knot of tension he didn't even know he was carrying loosens. He takes a breath. He continues. That's enough. That moment. That small opening. The monastic life is not about perfection. It's not about always being in the right state, always feeling connected, always being holy. It's about persistence, about returning again and again to the practice, regardless of how you feel about it. Brother William will do this for the rest of his life. Probably. He's 32 now. If he's fortunate, he might live into his 60s, maybe even 70s. That's not common in the medieval world, but it's more common in monasteries than outside them. Regular meals, relative safety, a certain level of health care from the infirmarian. So let's say he lives to be 65. That's 33 more years. 33 years of rising in the night. 33 years of matins and lauds. Assuming he misses very few nights. And monks almost never miss the night offices unless they're seriously ill. That's about 24,000 times that he'll walk the night stairs. 24,000 times he'll take his place in the choir stalls. 24,000 times he'll chant the opening verse, "O Lord, open my lips." It's staggering when you think about it. The sheer repetition, the same psalms over and over, the same movements, the same cold stones. And yet, each time is also slightly different. Each night brings its own particular quality of darkness, its own temperature, its own interior state. The monastery is always the same and always changing. The liturgy is fixed and yet fluid. This is what it means to live liturgically, to let the hours shape you rather than you shaping the hours. To submit to a rhythm larger than yourself, older than yourself, that will continue after you're gone. Today, there are still monasteries where monks rise in the night for matins. Not many, and not all monasteries maintain this practice, but some do. Benedictine and Cistercian monasteries primarily. In these places, the ancient rhythm continues. If you were to visit one of these monasteries, and some of them allow guests, allow people to come and participate in the liturgy, you could experience this yourself. You could wake in the night, walk to the church, sit in the choir stalls, listen to the chant rising in the darkness, and you would discover something interesting. It's both exactly like the medieval experience and completely different. The structure is the same. The psalms are the same. The Latin chant is the same. But the context has changed. These monks have electric lights, even if they choose not to use them much. They have heat, though they might keep it low. They have modern medicine, transportation, communication with the outside world. They're choosing this life in a way that medieval monks often didn't. In the Middle Ages, entering a monastery was sometimes a choice, but often it was more of a family decision or an economic necessity. Today, a man who becomes a monk is almost always choosing it freely, out of genuine vocation. And that changes things. When you're choosing deliberately to wake in the night, to pray in the cold, to submit to this ancient rhythm, there's a different quality to it, a different relationship to the practice. But the essential experience remains. The darkness is still dark. The cold is still cold. The discipline of rising when your body wants to sleep is still difficult. And the peace that comes from submitting to this rhythm, from participating in something larger than yourself, that's still available. For those of us who don't live in monasteries, who aren't going to wake up at 1 a.m. to chant psalms, what does this history offer? Maybe it's a reminder that sleep doesn't have to be one unbroken block, that waking in the night isn't a problem to be solved, but potentially a different way of experiencing time, consciousness, rest. Maybe it's an invitation to consider what rhythms shape our lives. Do we have any structure that calls us beyond ourselves, beyond our individual desires and schedules. Any practice that we return to daily, regardless of how we feel about it. Maybe it's simply a window into a different way of being human. A way that took darkness seriously, that saw the night as sacred time, that wasn't afraid of cold or discomfort or repetition. The medieval monks who rose for matins weren't trying to be heroic. They weren't trying to prove anything. They were simply living according to a rule, a structure that they believed oriented them toward God. And in doing so, they created something beautiful, a practice that sustained communities for centuries, a way of marking time that honored both darkness and light, sleep and waking, silence and song. In our modern world, we've optimized for efficiency, for productivity, for comfort. We've eliminated most of the rhythms that once structured human life. We don't have to wake with the sun or sleep with the darkness. We don't have to observe the seasons in our daily routines. We can be disconnected from the natural cycles of the world. And that's mostly good, mostly progress. But maybe we've also lost something. Maybe we've lost some understanding of how rhythm and repetition can shape us, can form us into something more than just isolated individuals pursuing our own goals. The monks knew that you become what you repeatedly do. And what they repeatedly did was wake in the night, gather in community, sing ancient prayers, and wait for the dawn. They became people who were at home in the darkness, people who could be present to the mystery, to the silence, to the cold and the waiting. People who were formed by the liturgy into something the liturgy intended, a community of vigilance, of faithfulness, of persistent hope that the light would always return. And so we've spent these hours together, walking through the night hours of medieval monastic life. We've risen in the darkness. We've walked the night stairs. We've sat in the cold church. We've chanted psalms and waited for dawn. If you're still awake, and honestly, I hope you're not, I hope you've drifted off at some point during this journey. If you're still here, listening, thank you. Thank you for spending this time in the darkness and the silence with me. The medieval monks would have called this vigil, keeping watch, being present, holding the thread of attention through the night. And maybe that's what you've been doing, in your own way. Maybe you've been keeping vigil with these voices from the past, these men who lived so differently from us, but who were still fundamentally human, still tired in the night, still cold, still showing up anyway. The dawn came for them every single morning. It will come for us too. Sleep well, rest deeply, and if you wake in the night, for whatever reason, maybe take a moment before going back to sleep. Feel the darkness, listen to the silence. Notice that you're alive, awake, present. You're keeping your own kind of vigil. Until next time.